Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer are blasting China's move to curb exports of rare earth minerals, calling that action a threat to the global supply chain.
We were just surprised that China. I have a very good relationship with President Xi, and they did that. This is not something that
Trump is threatening a 100% tariff on China following their move to tighten exports of rare earth minerals.
Today, China announced new restrictions on rare earth minerals, and that really kind of set the ball in motion as to what has happened in the past day or so.
What if I told you the most powerful country in the world doesn't control the materials that power its own weapons? Right now, fighter jets, phones, even wind turbines all depend on 17 mysterious metals.
Restrictions on rare earth minerals. Remember, China has about 70% of the global supply of rare earths. It's important for everything from your cars to your computer to the chips that NVIDIA makes that power the AI revolution. And it's really been at the heart of these trade tensions. It did seem like both sides had made progress over the last few meetings.
It's mostly controlled by China. This isn't a rumor or conspiracy. It's real, and it's changing global power forever. Here's how China quietly took over the world's rare earth supply and why everyone else is scrambling to catch up. You probably don't think about what makes your phone light up or what makes an F-35 jet fly, but behind every screen, motor, and missile lies something small and powerful: rare earth metals. There are 17 of them, and they sound like they belong in a sci-fi movie. Neodymium, dysprosium, terbium, and more. These strange names power the modern world. Without them, there would be no smartphones, no electric cars, no wind turbines, and no advanced weapons. They make magnets stronger, batteries last longer, and machines more efficient. In short, these metals are the invisible gears of modern life. Here's the twist: almost all of them come from one place: China. Over the last few decades, China quietly became the global superpower of rare earths. They mine them, refine them, and ship them to the rest of the world. And if you want to build anything high-tech, you have to go through them first. That gives China massive control. Imagine if one country owned almost all the oil back in the 1900s. That's what this is like today. The United States, Japan, and Europe all depend on these metals to build the technology that keeps their economies and militaries running. But if China decides to slow down exports or raise prices, the rest of the world suddenly struggles. The strange part, these metals aren't actually rare. You can find them in many parts of the world. The US has some, Australia has some, even parts of Africa and South America do. But finding them isn't the problem. Refining them, turning that raw rock into something pure and usable, is the hard part. And that's where China dominates. So when you hold your phone, you're holding a piece of global politics. That tiny magnet inside it might be made from materials processed in a Chinese factory thousands of miles away. The same factory might also produce the magnets used in fighter jets or satellites. That's how deep this dependence goes. And the question that's starting to worry world leaders is simple: how did China gain this much control? And why did no one else see it coming? Because this wasn't luck, it was a plan, and that plan started decades ago. China's early realization: the race no one else saw. Back in the 1980s, while the US and other countries were chasing oil and tech, China noticed something the rest of the world ignored: the hidden power of rare earth metals. At that time, the US was actually leading in rare earth production. America had the biggest mine in California called Mountain Pass, and it supplied most of the world. But the US didn't see these elements as a big deal. They were treated like just another raw material, useful, but not worth building an entire industry around. China, on the other hand, saw something different. Its leaders realized that these strange metals weren't just for science labs. They were the foundation of future technology. Magnets, computers, advanced weapons, all of it would depend on rare earths. So while the US was outsourcing and cutting costs, China was quietly investing. They built research centers, they trained scientists, they poured money into mining, refining, and developing the infrastructure needed to handle these elements. And here's the key: China didn't worry about how dirty or expensive it was. They focused on control, not comfort. Meanwhile, the US started shutting down mines due to environmental laws and rising costs. It was easier to let someone else do the hard work, and China was happy to take over. Slowly, they took the lead. One shipment, one factory, one government-backed project at a time. By the time other countries realized what was happening, it was too late. China wasn't just mining rare earths. It had built the entire supply chain. They could dig it, refine it, and manufacture the products that used it. That meant everyone else had to come knocking on their door. This wasn't luck or coincidence. It was a long game. A quiet strategy planned over decades. China turned what used to be a niche industry into one of the most powerful economic weapons in the world. And as the US was patting itself on the back for going green, China was building the backbone of green technology itself. But the real turning point wasn't just mining or refining. It came when China figured out how to turn these metals into something far more valuable: magnets. And that's when the race for rare earth dominance really began. The magnet revolution, the real power move. Magnets might sound simple, but they're one of the most powerful inventions ever made. And rare earth magnets? They're on another level. These tiny things are what make modern technology come alive. Think about this. Your phone vibrates because of a magnet. Your car window rolls up because of a magnet. Fighter jets, electric cars, wind turbines, and even space satellites all rely on magnets made from rare earth metals. Without them, most of our advanced machines simply wouldn't move. The magic metal behind this is called neodymium, one of those 17 rare earths. It helps create magnets that are 10 to 15 times stronger than the regular ones on your fridge. These magnets are small but incredibly powerful, and that changed everything. When China realized how important magnets were, it didn't just mine the materials. It took over the entire magnet industry. Factories popped up across the country, supported by cheap labor, government funding, and endless energy from coal plants. While other nations were focused on software and finance, China was quietly mastering the physical core of technology, the stuff that makes things move. Magnets made China's rare earths even more valuable. Suddenly, these weren't just metals. They were the key to the next generation of technology. Everything from green energy to advanced weapons needed them. The country that controlled magnets would control progress itself. So China started tightening its grip. It began limiting exports, deciding which countries could buy certain elements like samarium and terbium, both used in military tech. By doing this, China gained something no one else had: leverage. If another nation angered them, they could simply restrict access to these materials. No rare earths, no magnets, no modern machines. That's real power. And while China was expanding, the US was falling further behind. Its mines were closing, its refining plants were shutting down, and companies were becoming completely dependent on Chinese suppliers. The balance had flipped, and almost no one saw it coming. Magnets gave China the upper hand, not just in business, but in global influence. But the rise didn't come without a price. Behind China's booming industry was a darker side, one filled with pollution, toxic waste, and entire villages paying the cost for global progress. Every big success story has a dark side, and China's rise in rare earths is no different. The country didn't win this race by playing clean. It played dirty, literally. Mining rare earths isn't like digging up gold or coal. It's messy, toxic, and dangerous for the environment. To get a small amount of rare earth metals, you have to dig up massive amounts of rock and then use strong chemicals to separate what you want from what you don't. Those chemicals, acids, solvents, and radioactive waste, often end up in rivers, lakes, and soil. In the US, this kind of pollution would spark lawsuits and government crackdowns. But China didn't hold back. In the 1980s and 1990s, its leaders made a decision: economic power first, clean air later. And that gamble paid off, at least at first. While other countries were too worried about regulations, China kept mining and refining non-stop. Entire regions became industrial zones for rare earths. One of the most famous is near Baotou in Inner Mongolia. Locals call it the Toxic Lake. It's a massive, dark pool filled with chemical sludge from rare earth processing. Satellite photos show it spreading for miles, surrounded by factories that never stop running. People living nearby have reported reported poisoned crops, polluted water, and health issues. Reports claim some villages saw higher rates of illness and birth defects. It's a harsh reminder that China's rare earth boom came with a human cost. Still, the government didn't back down. It called the pollution a necessary sacrifice for national growth, and for years, that's how it stayed. China did the dirty work the rest of the world didn't want to do. Western countries were happy to buy clean products made from dirty materials, as long as the mess stayed somewhere else. By ignoring the environmental cost, China built a monopoly. It refined faster, produced cheaper, and scaled up quicker than anyone else. While other nations debated over climate policies, China cornered the market. But that control came with consequences. And not just for the planet. The next phase of China's plan wasn't about mining more. It was about locking down the entire system, from workers to technology. And that move changed everything. Total lockdown. How China built a monopoly. By the time the rest of the world realized how much control China had, it was already too late. The country wasn't just producing rare earths. It owned the entire process from start to finish. And that didn't happen by accident. It was part of a bigger plan. China didn't just dig up metals, it built a full system around them. The government offered cheap land, low interest loans, and massive subsidies to rare earth companies. Universities started training engineers who specialized only in rare earth science. Research labs popped up across the country, all focused on one goal: making China the undisputed leader of this market. And it worked. By the early 2000s, China wasn't just mining more than anyone else. It was refining about 90% of the world's rare earths. No other country even came close. But China wanted more than just production. It wanted control. So it passed strict export rules that made it almost impossible for other nations to compete. If a Chinese scientists wanted to work on a rare earth project abroad, they needed special government permission. The message was clear: the knowledge stays inside China. This control wasn't just economic, it was strategic. By owning every step of the process, China could decide who gets what and when. If another country pushed too hard politically, China could simply limit exports, creating instant pressure. It's a level of leverage most nations can only dream of. Meanwhile, the US industry was falling apart. The few remaining mines couldn't compete with China's low prices. The cost of meeting environmental and labor standards was too high. Eventually, even American companies began sending their materials to China for processing. In a strange twist, the US was mining its own rare earths but shipping them to China to be refined, and then buying them back at higher prices. China had mastered the game. It didn't just win the race, it changed the rules. What started as a dusty mining industry had turned into one of the most powerful supply chains in the world. But China wasn't stopping there. It had already conquered rare earths at home. The next step was to expand that control across the globe. One port, one mine, and one deal at a time. And that's where the Belt and Road Initiative comes in. The Belt and Road Advantage, expanding global control. Once China locked down rare earths at home, it didn't stop there. The next move was global, and it came through one of the biggest projects in modern history, the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI for short. On paper, the BRI is about building railroads, ports, and pipelines to connect Asia, Africa, and Europe. But behind the glossy infrastructure projects lies something deeper: control over resources. And that includes rare earths. China started investing billions of dollars into mining operations all over the world. From Africa to South America to Southeast Asia, Chinese companies began signing deals, building roads, and setting up mines. Countries that needed money got funding, and China got what it wanted: access to their minerals. Take Africa, for example. In nations like the Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia, China poured money into mining projects in exchange for long-term rights to minerals. In Latin America, similar deals popped up. Rare earths, lithium, copper, all tied to Chinese loans and construction contracts. Some reports claim that this isn't just business, it's strategy. By controlling supply routes and mines in multiple countries, China doesn't just secure materials, it builds influence. When a country owes China billions for infrastructure, it's hard to say no when Beijing comes calling. The numbers are massive. Since 2013, China has invested over $90 billion globally in mining through the Belt and Road Initiative, and in 2024 alone, it hit a record. More than $12 billion poured into new mining projects. Every mine, every port, every deal pushes China further ahead. Meanwhile, Western countries are still trying to catch up, but you can't build decades of global partnerships overnight. The US and its allies are now scrambling to secure their own mineral supply chains, but China already has a 10-year head start. With the Belt and Road, China turned rare earths from a national advantage into a global empire. It doesn't just mine metals, it mines opportunity, and that's why analysts now say we're entering a new kind of Cold War, one not fought with bombs or tanks, but with minerals and machines. Because the next battle isn't about land, it's about who controls what the future is made of. The US wakes up. Too late. For decades, the US didn't worry much about rare earths. It was focused on oil, chips, and Wall Street profits. Mining was seen as old-fashioned, messy, and not worth the trouble. But by the time America realized how far behind it had fallen, China already owned the game. The wake-up call came when US officials noticed how dependent the country had become. Every advanced weapon, every electric car, every smartphone, all needed materials that mostly came from China. The Pentagon warned that this wasn't just an economic issue, it was a national security risk. During his presidency, Donald Trump pushed hard to bring back mining and processing. He even floated wild ideas, like buying Greenland just to secure rare earth access. It sounded strange at the time, but the goal was serious: find new sources before China could squeeze supply. Later, the Biden administration tried to fix things too. Billions of dollars were poured into new mining projects in Texas and California. The US also teamed up with allies like Australia, Japan, and Canada to build joint processing facilities. It was a start, but the gap wasn't measured in years, it was measured in decades. You can't rebuild an entire industry overnight. China had the scientists, the refineries, the skilled workers, and the global deals already in place. The US, meanwhile, was struggling just to find enough trained engineers to restart its mining operations. Even today, some American mines still send their raw materials to China for refining, and then buy the finished product back. It's like baking a cake, but letting your rival use the oven. Still, the US isn't giving up. There's a growing push for mineral independence, with new laws and investments trying to catch up. But it's a race against time. Every delay gives China more leverage, and every new restriction from Beijing reminds the world who really controls the supply chain. The question now isn't just whether America can catch up, it's whether it's already too late. Because while the US is building, China is expanding even faster, spreading its influence across continents through mining deals, trade routes, and strategic control. And that's how we end up in what many experts are calling the new Cold War of minerals. The new Cold War, tech, minerals, and power. This isn't the kind of Cold War people read about in history books. There are no missiles pointed at each other, no secret agents crossing borders. But make no mistake, another silent war is happening right now. And instead of being fought with weapons, it's fought with minerals. Rare earths have become the new oil. Whoever controls them controls technology, energy, and defense. And China knows it. That's why it keeps tightening export rules, cutting supply, and reminding the world who's in charge. Every time a new trade dispute flares up, China has a hidden advantage. It controls the materials everyone else needs. When the US raises tariffs or bans tech sales, China can simply respond by limiting rare earth exports. That puts pressure on companies that rely on those metals to build phones, computers, and military hardware. It's a quiet but powerful weapon, one that doesn't need a single shot fired. The US and its allies are fighting back, investing billions to build their own supply chains. Australia, Japan, and Canada have joined forces to create new processing hubs. Europe has passed new laws to to boost critical mineral independence. But rebuilding takes time, and China has a 30-year head start. Meanwhile, tensions keep rising. Every trade meeting, every new sanction, every new tech restriction adds fuel to the fire. Analysts say we're entering a mineral cold war, a battle for control of the world's resources that power modern life. It's not about land anymore. It's about what's inside the land, the metals, the minerals, and the technology they make possible. Whoever controls that controls the future. And China isn't planning to give up that control anytime soon. Its state-run companies, backed by government funding, are expanding into Africa, Latin America, and even parts of Europe. Every deal signed adds another link to its global chain. The rest of the world is racing to catch up, but China already built the track, owns the train, and sells the tickets. And as both sides push harder, one question hangs in the air. What happens when technology itself becomes the weapon? Because this isn't just about minerals anymore. It's about power. Conclusion: rare earths aren't just metals, they're the building blocks of our future. From smartphones to satellites, every modern invention depends on them. And right now, one country holds nearly all the cards. China turned dirt into dominance and built power from the ground up. The world is trying to catch up, but the clock keeps ticking. Because in the race for rare earths, it's not about who digs faster, it's about who plans further. And the real question isn't who's winning now, but who will control tomorrow's technology.